All right, friends, welcome back to Talking Sports at Work. And I think I've decided how I'm going to do this is I'll do the 1 through 10 on hopefully today I can get that out there. And the next day I will do the 11 through 20. And then I'll finish it up the next day, or I'll do that the next day, post that the next day. And then on the third day I will finish up the beginning or the first round. Anyway, I also found a good little spot, I think, for myself on the screen, hopefully. Hopefully that looks better and is not taking up, too much of the important stuff here. But anyway, again, I know I spent a lot of time on the Titans and Jeremiah Love, and I don't want people to think that I don't like him as a prospect. I do. And I'm sure people are wondering, why would he still be sitting there on the board? And the reason is honestly pretty simple. Once he gets past us, I don't see the Giants taking him. I think they need to fix the offensive line, and Washington could. That would certainly make a lot of sense. I just think fixing the defense with the elite defensive prospects available should be the higher priority, and the same thing goes for the Bengals. Now, for the Miami Dolphins, they are... And then, you look at the Chiefs and the Saints, and both just signed big contracts for running backs. But again, this is all projection, and who knows how it's going to go. And I did just read an article that says there's growing momentum that the Titans will take Love. And look, if they do, then they've got to hit the rest of the draft. They have got to get that guard and center position taken care of. There's some good interior linemen going to be available in the second and third, and I think we'll probably have to spend both of those picks, honestly, on or at least one of them. Probably the second round pick has to be an interior offensive lineman, and then maybe Love really can thrive early on. I certainly hope so. I'm not rooting against him by any stretch. I don't feel like it's the right direction given the options, and especially if one of those edge rushers is still available, Reese or Bain, then I just don't think that's the way that we should go. But again, it's also not the way that the Miami Dolphins would go, given that they've got Devon Achane as, one of the best young running backs in the league. So if that happens this way, then we would see a little bit of a slide begin for Love. What they do need is to fix that secondary along with receivers, and then that's very likely here as well. If there's a guy that they really like, if they, aren't worried about Jordan Tyson's injuries, or they really like Mekhi Lemon's potential, they could go that way. Excuse me. But Jeff Hafley, being a defensive guy, I just see him looking at it and seeing the guy who is largely the consensus number one cornerback in the draft still on the board, and they go for it. Now look, I'm one of the people that I listen to the most when it comes to draft analysis is Chris Sims with NBC Sports, and that dude knows especially like receivers, skill position guys, and so I'm assuming that he knows DBs as well. He is not a fan of Delane. In fact, I think he had him as like the 4th or 5th best corner in the draft. And once he started talking about it, it made a lot of sense. I'm not personally saying that because I honestly don't know. I haven't watched enough of him to say. But what I have seen, he looks like a good corner who played against the top talent in the country. And I think the Dolphins would jump at this opportunity. So now we get to the Dallas Cowboys, and I know everybody's saying, "Oh, you're all the way to 12," and the guy that ESPN keeps telling me is the best player in this draft, and he's the perfect prospect, and he's a weapon. He's not a running back. He's still sitting there on the board. How could he be available? Well, I guarantee you the Cowboys would actually be pretty happy if he were still available. Now they also aren't perfect. They've still got a lot of work to do, and excuse me, they certainly need to fix the defense as well. But I think if Love does happen to fall this far, Jerry Jones is going to stop his slide, because he's going to look at him and he's going to see the next iteration of, Ezekiel Elliott and Emmitt Smith, and the guy who could be worthy to carry that baton and wear that star as the Cowboys' workhorse running back. And Jeremiah Love is that kind of guy. The Cowboys are in a better situation offensively with an experienced quarterback, two elite receivers. The offensive line isn't quite what it used to be, but it's still really good, I think. And this is a place where Jeremiah Love could come in, and as a rookie, he could thrive. I think this would be a perfect landing spot for him, and I think it would be a great pickup for the Cowboys as well. 12. I know I was just talking about not taking a running back in the top 10 and blah, 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 and 12 is really close to 10, but I do think Love is good enough for a team that is really probably better than 12, or better than where they're picking, to go ahead and take a chance on him. Now, they're still going to have to address the defense, especially without Micah Parsons, but luckily they've got a lot of draft capital that they got in that trade. They've got another first-round pick here and some picks later to take care of those needs. So they go ahead and they get, right now, one of the elite prospects in the draft that fell in their laps. Now, at 13, the Rams. There are a few ways they could go. I think Kenyon Sadiq would be an intriguing option here. The offensive line could still use some help, but we've seen the most commonly mocked position for them here at 13 is a wide receiver, and that was even before all the drama with Puka Nacua, which, I mean, let's face it, we don't really know where all that's going to go. Last I heard, I think he's still in a rehab facility, and so, we don't know if any of this is going to end up leading to long-term problems or suspensions or anything. They could be without Puka for some time as well. So, even before that stuff was public, a lot of the mock people, a lot of the media had them taking a receiver to be sort of the heir apparent to Davante Adams and to try to maximize the maybe 1 year they have left with Matt Stafford. And so I think they're willing to take a chance on Jordan Tyson. Now, I don't know. I obviously don't have any sort of inside information, but we know that Les Snead is not afraid to gamble and be aggressive. He's going to see this guy and see this as maybe the best all-around receiver in the draft. And if he's not, he's very close. And, if everything checks out with his medicals, I think they would love to take him. And whether Puka is there to start the season or not, we saw what happened to that offense whenever, and this is a Sean McVay offense, whenever one or both of their receivers got hurt, they had no depth behind them, so he could come in right away and have a big impact. And if they're missing Puka, or if Davante, who's getting up there, gets hurt, this guy could really be ready to take on a big role, again, assuming he stays healthy, which, I hope he does. Now, at 14, the Baltimore Ravens. This is one, there's no reason to really overthink it. I think they are happy that the draft board fell this way, and, I'm going to go the chalk route here. Give them the best interior offensive lineman on the board, who really just seems to fit the Raven sort of profile. He is a big mauler of a blocker. I think he'd fit really well with... now, I know that they're changing coaches, and maybe the scheme will be somewhat differently, but he just fits the Ravens' profile. Even if they get away from that pure gap scheme, power run, and that's not all that they do. This is just a complete player who, just is available at 14 because he plays guard and not tackle. They lost Tyler Linderbaum. Now, I don't know if Ione here can play, or I don't even know how you say that. Is it Ione? I thought it was Ione. I don't know. But I don't know if he can play center for them. but even if he doesn't directly replace Tyler Linderbaum, they already needed an upgrade at guard as well. He would make up for a lot of what they lost with him. Now, he wouldn't totally make up the difference, because that's another thing. I've said for years that center is one of the most undervalued positions in the league, and that's one of the other reasons why it's driving me insane that the Titans still don't seem to have one, especially for a young quarterback, man. It's so... The Raiders, I know they gave him this massive, record-breaking, fully guaranteed contract. I think it was the right move for them. They had the money to spend. They know they're getting a young quarterback. And what could be better for a young quarterback than a guy who protects him and can take a lot of the weight off of his shoulders? The more you can take off of a young quarterback's plate, the better. You've got an experienced center who can call out the protections, who can point out things that the young quarterback might miss, or that just, that he doesn't have to worry about. It's another reason why the Titans have got to get a friggin' center. But anyway, we're moving on to number 15 now, and that's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think this one's pretty much chalk as well. I've seen it in a lot of the other mock drafts. Mesidor is a guy who, he's not up there with, your Reese and Bailey or even Bain, who was his running mate. He's 24 years old, which, I know teams don't like to draft older guys in the first round, but they are kind of in like a win now mode already, so I don't think the age thing's going to bother them too much. The only thing that would worry me with that, if I'm the Buccaneers, is, why is he just now coming out? It makes you worried. Did he just take a long time to develop, or did he just have, what? I don't know. Anyway, but he's 24, and he had one of the best, honestly, the best pure pass rusher, I believe, in college football, or defensive end on the other side. With all respect to David Bailey, Ruben Bain was just a game wrecker, and I'm sure that having him on the other side probably helped Mesidor, but he was already a star, I believe, last year. So they're getting, at worst, a guy who feels like a pretty high floor player who fixes an immediate problem and addresses an immediate need for them. Now, the New York Jets, with the second of their first-round picks. Which way could they go here? Now, I honestly think that a real possibility here, unlike, the worldwide leader and, everybody basically just copies what they say, it feels like. I think it is a real possibility here that they go ahead and nab their quarterback. We know that Geno Smith is a very temporary option, and there's absolutely no guarantee that Aaron Glenn will survive this season and be able to be picking in that quarterback-rich next draft, which, let me just for a moment go on a tiny rant, because I'm so sick of that. They say it every fucking year, man. Every year. And how do they not address this? It's every single year. They will talk about, there might be one or two quarterbacks in this draft, but next year's class, though. They said the same thing last year. They said the same thing the year before last. And it's like, come on. Remember this time last year. Oh, but next year, Garrett Nussmeier and Drew Haller and Cade Klubnik are all coming out. And there's a chance Arch might come out, which I said that was ridiculous anyway. That draft class next year, though, boy. And here we are. One name none of them mentioned was Fernando Mendoza. And I didn't hear Ty Simpson mentioned among them either. We don't know what next year's quarterback class is going to be like. The only guarantee, the closest thing to a guarantee, is if there is a guy named Manning, you better hope that the Jets are terrible and get the number one pick if they want to get him, because that's the only way they're getting him. Other than that, we don't know if Dante Moore is going to completely fall off the face of the earth. Lenoris Sellers was also projected to be the number one pick in this draft. He could bounce back or go back. Who knows? No, the idea of waiting for next year's great quarterback draft class is just so stupid, and they say it every year. And especially for a guy who's coming into the season on a little bit of a hot seat, I don't think he can afford to wait too long. But I also think that he's looking at this as Geno's good enough to help us win some games next year, especially if we add an elite talent in Kenyon Sadiq, who, and this is, I haven't actually seen him mock to them, I don't think, on any of the other ones, but it just made all the sense in the world to me, because it feels like the Jets are in this position where they've got so many needs, where it's just like, just take the best player. Like, they can actually sort of take the best player available. Everybody always talks about that, and teams say that, and fans think that it actually happens. It doesn't. No, teams draft according to need. They always do. That's just the way it goes. But in the position the Jets are in, where they just have so many needs, it's like, they can go a number of ways. So why not just take the only tight end, I think, ever to run a 4.3 at the combine, a guy who is a ridiculous athlete, who is head and shoulders above any other guy at the position, and who can really be an immediate weapon and game changer and matchup nightmare in their offense. They don't have a lot outside of Garrett Wilson in terms of weapons. They've got Breece Hall, who's a really good running back and can be a good pass catcher, but to get a legitimate matchup nightmare and a guy who can do the things he can, that would be a good deal for the Jets. Now, at 17, the Detroit Lions. This one just honestly felt obvious to me. Like, I didn't even have to think about this one. Taylor Decker is apparently wanting out. I don't know if they've traded him or cut him or anything yet, but he's apparently done there. There's been talk about moving Penei Sewell to the left side, but honestly, it feels like if you don't have to do that, then I wouldn't. He's the best, he's one of, if not the best right tackle in the sport. Let's not mess with that. Let's go and get the guy who has more upside than any other offensive lineman in this draft. And honestly, I've been saying for a little while now that I don't know that he will still be available for the Lions at 17. I haven't really been able to understand why people are overlooking Caden Proctor, who's just this freak of an athlete and giant of a human. Now, he had some problems. His technique certainly needs to be improved. But, all the issues that he had are things that can be, pretty easily, or not easily, but can be fixed and taken care of with a decent offensive line coach. This is a guy, you can't coach this kind of size and power and athleticism. I think the Detroit Lions would run this friggin' card up there if he's still sitting there on the board at 17. Now, the Vikings, here's another one that, I'm not going to overthink it. It's kind of everybody's along the same lines of thinking with this. Give them this guy who fills the need for them, who seems to be a perfect fit for Brian Flores, who can just come in right away and take over. He won't actually replace Harrison Smith right away, but he can do a lot of those same kind of things, and he can be that guy for them very quickly. This one just makes too much sense to overthink. Now, at 19, we've got the Carolina Panthers. Now, there are a number of ways they could go. They could stand to improve the pass catchers. They could itchy, my dog's wanting in. I'm going to rush through this real quick. So they could stand to improve at a lot of positions, but they clearly have seemed to understand that any success they're going to have is going to depend on protecting Bryce Young, if they're going to keep him as their franchise quarterback. So Spencer Fano is, by all the metrics and measurements and tape and media and everything, one of the top offensive linemen in the draft. Now, he's just another guy who, I believe he played right tackle in college mostly, or at least his last year. And he's got the question marks about the short arms. Can he play tackle at the next level? But either way, like, I think he would be a good addition for the Panthers, whether they can put him at right tackle or they have to start him out at guard. I've even read about him that some people think he could play center. And they got Rasheed Walker on a crazy friggin' heck of a deal, like $10 million for 1 year, which I couldn't believe that, to come in and play for Ekwonu, who is dealing with a pretty serious injury. So they took care of that position, and Ekwonu is also not even beyond the injury. I think his contract's going to be up after next year, so they're going to have some question marks there. So the offensive line, given that they have a tiny quarterback that they're trying to build around, is going to continue to be the priority for them, and give them one of the top guys in the draft. Now, the Dallas Cowboys are sitting here. They got their successor to Ezekiel Elliott and Emmitt Smith, and hopefully all the great running backs. And again, I like Love as a prospect, and I hope he does well. So what are they going to do at number 20? Well, there's that big glaring need that they have on defense, and I think Keldrick Faulk would be perfect. Now, he is raw. He had the, that kind of, maybe the production didn't match what his expectations and his athletic profile, but it wasn't like he did nothing. It wasn't like he did, what the Texas A&M dude had like last year, where he had like 2.5 sacks. I think he had like 7.5 sacks playing on a terrible Auburn team. I mean, let's face it. He's only, I believe, 20 years old. He's got a super high ceiling. I mean, we could be looking back now in a few years and saying Keldrick Faulk is one of the better pass rushers, defensive ends in the NFL. That would not surprise me. Like, I think he's got that kind of ceiling, but he is a risk. He's a high ceiling guy, but he's also potentially low floor guy. There's a lot to work with, but you're going to have to work with it and kind of mold him into the guy you want him to be. All right, friends, I'm going to go let my dog in because he's scratching over there, and take a break. And like I said, the plan is I will finish up with picks 21 through 32 and post that tomorrow. So stay tuned. All right, love you, bye.